In today's video, I want to talk with you about rhythm and how we perceive rhythm and what makes a good rhythm. So the first thing we have in rhythm is basically beats. So beats is where we put like an accent on. The second component is the meter. So for example, in dance music or in Psytrance, we commonly use 4/4. That doesn't mean that we only have like 4 notes, but we have 4 positions where we have our on beats. Then the third component, which is really important, is the tempo. My tracks are usually right in 145 beats per minute. And those 3 components kind of like form mainly the perception, how we perceive the rhythm in music. And you can also do like different things at different tempos. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what actually makes a rhythm. So for example, if I would play those 4 notes all the time, we wouldn't perceive any rhythm because we are only playing something, but we don't have any breaks in between. So let's listen to that. Nothing about it. There's no groove, there's nothing about this. And then the next thing is, if we would have this pattern here, we also wouldn't perceive much of a rhythm. I mean, we do something like this with a kick drum, so like an ostinato where we repeat everything during the whole track at the same time. All the other elements like this, if this wouldn't work because we are missing a pattern, so our brain cannot really recognize where's the starting and the ending position, and also it's not very interesting because there's nothing changing in here. So obviously we need something more to it, and this brings us to 3 really interesting things about rhythms I found. And the first one is syncopation. So syncopation is basically the absence of a strong beat, or if we put an accent where we have no strong beat. So our strong beats are here with the kick, 1, 2, 3, 4, and our off beats are all the other positions. Let me, for example, let me remove a few notes, but let's say we would have this, which is similar to the one before. It's not very interesting. But instead, we could play with this and maybe move this here before. So we have basically our absence of a strong beat here, an absence of a strong beat here. And maybe we do it like this, and then we don't have anything here, and then we have 2 here. And now we start to perceive kind of like rhythm in that. And one thing how you could classify rhythms is with IOIs, inter-onset intervals. It's basically, here we have like an onset and it's going for like 3 spaces, 3 pulses until we have the next. So this rhythm would be like 3, 4, 3, 2, 2, 2. Or if we make it maybe like this, then we would have 3, 3, 3, 4, 2. So that's how we could describe our rhythm. And there was actually a guy who examined like a lot of rhythms in the world and wrapped his head around it in many like mathematical ways. And he wrote a book. And short spoiler, the book is really boring because it's all about mathematics and not so much in the first place about what really makes a good rhythm. And it really made me understand it more and help me in my decisions. So we have talked about syncopation, but there are 2 more important properties he mentions, which I think are quite interesting. And one of those is fractals. Fractals you could describe as like a sub-pattern in a pattern, basically. So you have one large pattern, and it's constructed of smaller patterns which repeat in their own. So let's say we have this here, 1 on, 2 off, 1 on, 2 off. This would be like a sub-pattern. So we have this pattern, and we repeat it here. and for example, we bring a new one then here, and let's say we repeat this then again, then we would have one small subpattern, this, which is repeating here and here, and we would have one bigger subpattern, which is repeating here and here. So that's our fractals, which I think are really important. And another one is symmetry. As we will see later in the world rhythms, that symmetry has also a very important thing, because it influences also the distributions of our beats here. One more word to music in general is music is actually organization, you could say. There's a lot of rules and mathematics actually in music. If you go, for example, for scales and melodies, but also here in the rhythm. And one very important component which I see in music is you always want to have some order. That's what we actually perceive mostly as more like beautiful. And then you want to destroy this order. That's what we kind of like perceive as tension. And the right mixture, the right balance of those expectations versus the destruction, the irregularity, the things we don't expect, the kind of like the ugliness we bring in, the more we get this balance between those tension and kind of like reliefs, right, the more we get something which is on the one hand very beautiful, and on the other hand interesting enough to keep our attention. And the interesting thing he talks about in the book is, like in this example of one bar, we have 16 pulses here where we could place our notes. And if we only place 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4,368 combinations. And the really interesting thing is that out of all these combinations, only like about 50 to 100 are used all over the world, and only 6 are really used very commonly and over time. And on those 6 we will have a deeper look today. And those 6 here for 16 pulses are the shiku, the sukus, the rumba clave, the gahu, the bossa nova, and the son clave. So you always see the black points are where we have like a beat playing, and the white ones are our silent breaks. Our IOIs would then be kind of like the blocks here. So we would have here, if you would describe this rhythm in IOIs, it would be like 3, 3, 4, 1, 5. And the purple thing here is basically the area here in between. And you can see that all those rhythms are kind of like distributed very like, you could say like equally almost. So it's not that we have like a huge buildup of beats here and then we don't have anything over here. No, it's actually more distributed around the circle. And here on this green lines, you see we also have like symmetry points. So the left side here is the same as the right side. And there are a lot of more rhythmical properties he describes, like oddity, if you have points on the other side of the circle, or if you have like this 90-degree angles in it and whatever. But I think the most important ones, and the ones which will stick in your head and which you can use if you write melodies and you don't want to kind of like draw them on paper before, is that you want to have that kind of like equal distribution over the circle, and you also want to have some kind of like symmetry or almost symmetry in there. And as I said, musical tension is about expectation and surprise, and that's where also why this is not like 100% symmetrical everywhere. It's usually, for example, if we look here, then we would expect to have it playing here on the 4, like on the on beat, and notice this starts here at 0. So this would be like this 4 would be here, this note. So we have like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in that counting. But we already played one earlier, and that way we create that kind of like surprise element. And the same then here. and then we play, for example, this one more regular here again. In other words, that symmetry and irregularity is also expectation and surprise. And now I want you to listen to those patterns here with this FM here. So this is already a really cool pattern, and from there you can go many ways. You can make notes like shorter, longer, or we can kind of like fill up the gaps here. Let me shorten them a bit that we can feel the difference to those fillers. And there you go, you already have a really cool FM rhythm created out of those world rhythms. And one important thing is why it's only also 6 positions is you kind of like keep those same IOIs, those same patterns of on and off if you rotate the pattern. And of course it will have a different sounding, but you can try this here. So for example, we could rotate this. You can also rotate this by having the loop on. And if we go here, for example, to this position, then we would start here instead of here. So we would rotate this to the right. So I think you can get very easy, very, very cool results with those basic world rhythms. And also they teach you a lot about the positioning of those notes here. Let's listen a few more. Notice once I put the small notes in, it will sound more fast because we have more notes playing at the same time, and that gives us a faster perceived rhythm here. But the main shots are still on those positions, so we really still perceive the original rhythm, even though that we fill up those small spaces. Or you could also maybe like put ghost notes in or whatever you like. There are many options for that. And he also describes rhythms with 12 pulses in the book. So 2 popular ones are the Fume Fume and the Bemba. And here's the same. You can see, for example, the purple one, it's almost kind of like filling the whole area here underneath. So we don't have something which would stop here and then we have like this huge gap here. So you can really visually see it by those rhythm bracelets, how they kind of like work and why they might sound so good, while it's a little bit more difficult in here, to be honest. Now I want to go a little bit into polyrhythms and polymeters. Let's take those two for now. You can also see if we put the colors in here. A polymeter is basically if we have the same lengths here, but we have different lengths here. So we're playing this one for 16 pulses and we only play this one for 12 pulses. And if we would loop that, then we would get something like this. It's a bit much here, to be honest. I wouldn't use it like this, but maybe with a different synth here. But I think it's quite cool if you have melodies and FMs, then it can work really good. You need to be a bit careful because because of the different looping here, you will get different points where things overlap. And there are actually 2 things how you can fix that a bit. The first thing is you would consolidate this and then you can just move certain positions. Of course, you would change that repetition pattern with that. But it's a good way to clean that a little bit out and to give each of those the right spaces. A second method you can use is, and I think that's a really cool one, is that you start resetting it after a few bars. So for example, I could leave this here for 2 bars. and then I copy this over, and now we have basically the same positions overlapping like here. You need to try a little bit around to get this working, and usually it works good if you have sounds which don't collide as much as those two I have selected here. Now let's look into the polyrhythm. So the polyrhythm is basically if we would play those for the same lengths, but we play a different amount of shots in here. And we can achieve that if we just consolidate this to also to one bar here. Then we add one extra shot. We select all the notes. You get this little gray icon here. And we just move this here, and now we would have like a poly rhythm. So basically the same lengths, but they are playing at different positions here in the grid. And I personally don't see so many applications in my music for that. I think it can be cool maybe for some melodic things, but for all those rhythmic things like FMs, it's not very usable, because if you have those notes here playing not on the grid, you see they are kind of like in between now, somewhere here. And if you mix those, I personally feel it a bit ugly. What I usually then do is, and then you're not playing a polyrhythm anymore, is you take all those notes and you quantize them again to the grid, and you get, of course, a new distribution of that notes. You could say this is basically a technique to create a new rhythm. And then you, of course, you will need to adapt it a little bit. As you can see, now we have those notes very close to each other, which had a totally different spacing before. So that's just like one option how you can go about this. Let me know in the comments if you think you have a cool application for those polyrhythms, or if you use it in your track. I definitely wouldn't use it with such rhythmic elements, because I really think it kind of like screws the timing in your track, and that kind of like sounds off to me. Actually, you can remember this really simple if I go back. So we have like polyrhythm. So poly basically means more than one, and so two or more. And rhythm is basically the kind of like distribution of notes. And polymeter you can remember just by switching the meter basically here. So you have the meter here on the left side, and we would play like 12 pulses. So that would be like 3, 4. So you see, like if I'm looping this, you can see nicely if you change the meter, it's 1 bar again. So check that. Now it's missing this one here, but if we set the correct meter here, then you see it's looping nicely again in this counting here. Let me know in the comments if you have any cool tricks and tips about rhythm, or any really cool videos or interesting pages, just link to them. I'm diving a lot deeper into this topic, and if you want to know more about creating melodies, then I'll link up to a playlist here. And if you want to go deeper with your own production, you find all the information in the description box below, and see you next time.